Hello, everyone. This is Austin from Raw Bliss. I am here with Grant Campbell, aka Raw Aussie Athlete. He is an ultra runner and a 15-year raw vegan. He also does retreats around Latin America, as well as previously in Thailand. And he's done many speeches at various fruit festivals around the world. And yeah, great to have you here, Grant.
Yeah, my pleasure, Austin. It's been fun. We just had a bit of a conversation before this, so getting to know each other a little bit because we haven't really met before. So
yeah,
I'm excited to be here on the interview. It's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I first heard about you in when I was traveling Thailand, that you were doing a retreat in Canterbury, which is like the durian capital, like the fruit capital of Thailand.
Yeah, they actually grow half of Thailand's durian, and Thailand grows half of the world's durian. So a quarter of the world's durian is grown in that one province of Thailand, the province of Canterbury, where my retreats are, the Fruitarian Adventure retreats. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Hope to see you there sometime.
Yeah, I would definitely love to come.
It's an incredible place, Canterbury. The nature. One of my best friends is the tour guide for the retreat, and he's a local there. And the places that we go, that most tourists would never find them. It's just magical.
Yeah. How did you get into the was that the first place you did retreats, or how did you get into that?
I actually started running retreats in Australia in 2007 in February, and I did that because I got into raw. I went raw vegan in November 2005 after 6.5 years cooked vegan and a year and a half of vegetarianism before that, where I just continuously kept eliminating things from my diet constantly over that 18 months until I was vegan. But I wasn't aiming to be vegan. I didn't even know what veganism was actually at the time. So there just wasn't the same information. YouTube didn't exist, Facebook, it was just like emails and books and like printed books and word of mouth mostly. So information was a bit slower to get around. But I ran that retreat because I felt like, I'd go to these monthly like gourmet raw vegan, the unhealthy kind of high fat, bad food combination that, doesn't digest very well kind of raw vegan gatherings in Sydney. I'd go once a month. And despite the the problems with the food not digesting so well, I had a really great time with the people, just, connecting with like-minded people. But it was only a few hours once a month. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be awesome to get together with people, like, just like live and breathe the lifestyle, like for a number of days straight, just 24 hours a day, just live and breathe it. And then that should make it easier for people to be able to sustain it once they've experienced that. So I put a retreat on, and Durian Rider came, and Freely, the banana girl, came.
Oh, cool.
and it was a really interesting time in history. And we had an amazing time on this small island in the Hawkesbury River near Sydney. And it was just 3 days. And just strong friendships were made, and they continue, and just had an amazing time. And so then I ran probably, I don't know, like maybe another 6, 7, 8 retreats in Australia, and then started running them in Thailand in 2011. I held my first Thailand retreat about 6 months before the first Woodstock Fruit Festival was held in 2011.
Oh, okay.
So and then I've been running the retreats there ever since, and until the pandemic.
Right.
I've got retreat dates up on my website now for next year in 2022.
Cool.
It's always in May. It's for the month of May, and I run 2 retreats back to back. They're 2 weeks each, but most people come for the whole month, because once you're there, why would you want to leave?
Yeah, the fruit season there is incredible to experience.
It's ridiculous.
And the waterfalls and the temples. Like, I was looking at the video on your website. It's just a dream.
Yeah, it's a dream. It really is. And I've traveled a lot around the world, and I've never seen that magnitude of fruit anywhere else. Like there's the LA wholesale markets are a huge fruit market, but it's nothing compared to what's in Canterbury.
Absolutely.
During my retreat, we go to the world's biggest durian market, like wholesale market. Like it's absurd. Like there's at least 30 or more wholesalers.
I've been there.
Each,
I know what you're talking
each
about.
with that. Yeah, exactly. It's absurd. And if you go there in peak season, but the quality is not very good because they're all cut, right? So
Yeah,
at
you
my
gotta.
retreat, we go there for the spectacle, but we don't buy those durian. We buy the tree dropped ones from old trees that taste better and have them super fresh, so they have all the extra flavors.
And it's funny, right? Because they actually like they'll just throw tree drop durians at you because they don't want them, you know?
Yeah, that's true. There are people that value them, and I think they're valuing them more because, well, a lot of the locals do recognize that they taste better. They know.
Yeah.
But from a commercial aspect, like, shelf life always kind of wins out in commercial sales of fruit. So from that perspective, they're devalued a little bit. So if you just go to local markets where there aren't really any foreigners driving the prices up, then yeah, they're pretty inexpensive. And the cut ones actually cost more because the cut ones haven't hit the ground, so they're not dirty and the spikes aren't damaged and all that kind of thing, which they see as a devalued thing. But I see that as a benefit.
That's the same thing here in Vietnam. Like because they're Buddhist and they put the pretty fruits on their shrines, So I think that's why they value them more, or they're just they love aesthetics here. And I noticed that too. Like sometimes the dirty, and especially the ones that aren't like a name variety, like Montong, they'll be like, $1, $2 a kilo sometimes. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's some of the prices that I bought durian for over the years, that's been just the best of the best, and it's been the cheapest of the cheap.
Right.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Like, I'm grateful to, like, when I host my retreats, I pay all the people involved, all the locals involved, I pay them well. It's like,
right,
that they deserve it. And what they're giving is like, you can't get it anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's only there, and it's only like they've got, because durian trees are they're not true to seed. So if you plant a seed from a durian, you don't get the same fruit as what the seed came from.
Right.
It'll have slight variations. It'll be very similar, but it's either going to be worse or better, right? It's not going to be the same. And usually they're not better. So it's a big risk to grow a durian tree from seed because it takes like 5 to 7 years before you get any fruit.
Yeah.
And then the fruit gets better over time. So do you decide to cut the tree down if you taste it after 7 years and it's no good, or do you wait another 10 years and then see if it gets better, which it will?
Yeah.
So that's why everyone grafts these days. But yeah, nature's model is that every durian tree would be unique.
Definitely.
They'd all be different. They'd all be a different flavor, and that's really cool and exciting.
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
Love to kind of try more of that,
because like people always ask me, and like I'm sure you get it as well, like, what does durian taste like? I'm like, which one? Like I still get new tastes, and I've been eating it for like over 2 years. Like it's crazy.
It's really the same as asking, what does fruit taste like? It's that diverse. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think durian is more diverse than wine tasting. Like, obviously not that I drink wine, but from people are they smell it, and the way the language they use to describe it, durian has at least as many flavors as wine does.
Exactly.
It's crazy. From, there's like white chocolate and dark chocolate, coffee, caramel, toffee,
peanut,
vanilla,
almond.
Yeah, honeycomb, peanuts. And even like citrus. You can get citrus flavors in durian. And I went on Lindsay from the Year of the Durian. I went on her from yearofthedurian.com. I went on her Borneo tour, her durian tour of Borneo. Just before the pandemic started. No, I actually went to Borneo.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
She did release the box from there, but I went on the actual tour of, and we went to Brunei and all the parts of Borneo, Brunei and the Malaysian parts of Borneo, Sarawak and Sabah. and went to just incredible horticultural research parks that had fruits that just blew my mind. There were multiple varieties of fruits like mangosteen. I was always told there was just one variety of mangosteen. Turns
Yeah.
out that's not true. There's little red ones, and there's
Yellow.
ones with a long nose kind of protrusion, like where the petal thing on the end, like it's like a stretched out shape. And yeah, just there was just so many fruits there that I'd never seen, never heard of. Even after 15 years raw, like
Yeah.
it blew my mind. It blew my mind. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'd be the same if I went to the Amazon jungle or somewhere like that.
Well, I was going to say it because I was in Borneo for like 5 months, and I was looking for some of these fruits that she was getting. And I'm like, I couldn't find what she was getting, for
Yeah.
what I was doing. But that's because she was deep in the jungle. Like Borneo is one of the last of the untouched rainforests. Like there's not much left. And I really think it's like the Mecca, like during fruit season, of course, it's only like 4 months out of the year, but during those 4 months, it's like the Mecca for fruitarians, like the ultimate, like the most variety, the most wild, like ancient fruits ever, right?
In Borneo, you mean?
Yeah, in Borneo.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because yeah, definitely. And if you're fortunate to be someone like Lindsay, you just follow the monsoon around and get durian all year round.
That's what I was doing too. The durian trail, she calls it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Borneo, crazy. Like I had big fire red skinned durian with long curly spikes, like a ball of sun, like how people draw a sun, with
That's
curvy rays coming off it. It was like that, and there was white inside it, and it wasn't actually my favorite, but it was so interesting to eat. But it had a lot of the alcohol flavor to it.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's not fermentation. It's not like alcohol like normal, because it's a temporary flavor, and once it off gases, it's gone. Like the alcohol flavor in durian usually only lasts for 2 to 4 hours after it drops from the tree, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you mean like the numbing?
Well, numb is different again. That's another flavor.
Right.
So there's 5 different flavors that they talk about at the Baosheng.
Oh, nice.
Durian farm where Lindsay and I used to run a festival in Penang, the island of Penang in Malaysia. The owner there, Mr. Chang, he talks about the 5 flavors. There's numb, alcohol, sweet, bitter, and then there's a flower kind of fragrance.
Right.
And each one of those 5 things has a fragrance and a flavor, so you can identify them both ways. But if you've got a good nose, you can smell all 5 of those flavors, their presence or absence in any individual durian by just smelling along the seam of the durian. But you can't do it after you've eaten durian, because you're not as sensitive to it. But yeah. So if they're serving durian and they're serious about being able to pick the best durians and stuff, then they don't eat with the customers. But it's durian's just astonishing, the depth and diversity. And so yeah, like I had a durian in Borneo that I really enjoyed, actually, which you may be surprised why when I describe the flavor, but it tasted like eating cold cabbage soup.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was bland. It had cabbage, like cold cabbage kind of texture, like kind of like boiled cabbage that's been cooled.
Okay.
And like it had that kind of weird texture to it, but it was just just a raw fruit.
That's the turtle
durian. I liked it.
Right.
Yeah.
It grows on the tree trunk, right?
Oh, that's a different one again.
Okay.
What is that called?
Testudinarium.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but we saw that, but we didn't get to try that. It wasn't in season at the time. This other one, I can't remember the name of either. There was just so many things we got exposed to in such a quick time, such a short time. But it's kind of like it never opens. Like they fall to the ground, they don't split open. They have like really fine spikes. They don't have like thorns like normal durians. They just have kind of bumps, kind of like jackfruit, but more pronounced than jackfruit.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a light green, not yellowish, but like, yeah, kind of hinting towards a little bit yellowish, but like a light green kind of color. What's it called? It's called like karu karu or something like that.
Oh, kuru kuru. Yeah.
Kuru kuru, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
kuru kuru. That's the cabbage durian.
Okay. Let's.
Kora kora. No, isn't it kora kora?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
But let's talk about your background. Like when you first went raw you're from Sydney, you said?
Yeah. I grew up on the central coast of New South Wales in Australia,
Okay.
which is just north of Sydney, about an hour drive north of Sydney.
And what inspired you like at that time to go raw? Because I know there wasn't very many like I guess raw food gurus or whatever around back then.
There certainly were not. So yeah, I'd been. Well, I went cooked vegan in 1999 in June, and the first book I read, like straight away, I read a book by Leslie Kenton called Raw Energy.
Oh.
And it's a book that planted the seeds that raw is kind of better than, is a good option. It's a healthier option. They showed like the Kirlian photography where they showed like the essentially like the aura, the energy magnetic kind of field around a seed, and a healthy seed had more of a field than a seed from a sick plant. And they showed that a seed from a sick plant, when you plant it and it grows, and then it has produces fruit with seeds, that those seeds, like the grandchildren seeds, aren't as healthy as the grandchildren seeds from a healthy tree. So it's like kind of implied that your health is affected by your lineage, like your grandparents affect your how they lived, how their lifestyle, that actually affects you, which kind of makes sense.
Right.
So planted seeds like that and had some evidence, supporting it all, but it didn't make it practical. It wasn't like Doug Graham's the 80-10-10 diet that just says this is how you do it. Instead, she gave recipes like for how to make essene bread, where you like soak grains and it takes like 3 days and a very cumbersome process to make bread it's okay, but it's like it's not as exciting as eating fruit.
Right.
It's so much work, and so like I never made that, and so it planted seeds in me, but it wasn't practical, and I didn't really see eating raw as an option. I didn't realize, I didn't know anyone doing it, and I didn't see any examples of anyone actually doing it. So I just put that book aside as that was really interesting. But then 6.5 years later, a friend loaned me Doug Graham's Perfect Health Program, and this was just before, like the year before the 80-10-10 diet was released.
Oh wow.
So I listened to this Perfect Health Program, which was an interview by Frederick Pattenord with Doug Graham, and that I just like that was 12 hours of audio explaining everything about the lifestyle, to a great enough degree that I got it, and it was enough to actually do it. And so I just literally listened to that program. And I just went, it's like, duh, why didn't I think of that? Eat fresh, eat like fresh fruits and vegetables are everyone knows they're health foods. No one's calling anything else a health food, really. Why not eat them to the exclusion of everything else rather than having them with everything else in moderation? So so I just went raw and never looked back. But 6.5 years later, like for the first 6.5 years as a raw vegan, I had some unresolved things in my life that caused me, inner turmoil or pain or emotional pain. And one was that I was in a marriage that was failing and I didn't see a way to fix it. And then the other was that I was in a career in the corporate world. I worked for IBM for 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And I just needed to remove both of those things from my life in order to move forward. And while I didn't, and while I kept eating raw, like, you have so much more energy and more nerve energy and more you just feel more alive, you're hydrated, you're well nourished, so you think and feel more. And so while I didn't address those issues, it would become like pain when I'd be alone, so I'd go to festivals and all that stuff and be fine, and I'd never even think about eating cooked food. But then I would come home back to the same, old space again, and I'll just, on an unconscious level, I'll just find myself like going into a Subway and getting a veggie, the vegan, whatever they had that was vegan most of in Australia, that was called the veggie sub.
Yeah.
And or I would buy like, like just food off the street, like Indian, it was all vegan, but it was very oily and salty and harsh on the body, especially when you've been eating a clean raw diet in between. So it was pretty hard on me. Like my legs would swell up and my feet would swell up, and from the salt. And so they were kind of rough times, but it was occasional. But sometimes it would last, like might be every night for like a couple of weeks before I could snap out of it again. Usually it was shorter than that, but sometimes it got more of a hold on me. And but then eventually I addressed those issues in my life, and it's been rosy ever since. So that was like 2012 was the last time I ate anything cooked. Like,
wow.
So I just had no desire to, harm myself in any way.
Yeah. Once you get that,
it's really interesting
perspective, right? Like, you're getting the swollen legs from the salt, and you're just feeling like dehydrated, right?
Well, that was, funnily enough, like you would think that would be enough, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's because I still had, those points of pain inside me, just that I still hadn't addressed. So, I had to have the courage to face those things. It's easy to just, it seems convenient to put these things aside and just kind of just go along with life as normal and just be distracted by everything, do sports and hang out with friends or whatever. But if there's still underlying things that you haven't addressed, in the quiet moments, they'll come back and sting you. So you can't never ignore your own emotions, for sure.
Definitely.
So that was the lesson. Was it was basically a lesson in self-love. It's like eventually I realized that I never ever want to harm myself for any reason. Like, it's just like, why would you, like, by choice? I might stay up late and work to get something finished, or I may, do things that are compromising in some way to my health. But it'd be for a greater benefit of something that I value.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, I was literally harming myself with food to suppress emotion, and so I didn't think and feel as much, and it wasn't conscious either. It just kind of happened because I had that kind of discomfort. And the funny thing was that I never did anything like that until I went raw vegan, because I was just living a cushy life where nothing was challenging my core values and my ideals.
Yeah.
So, and then once I did start trying to grow as fast as possible, it's not effortless and it's not simple. There's hard times and it takes courage, and it's very rewarding, but it's not easy. And I guess that's why a lot of people, don't stay raw long term, because they, at some point, they find something that they just shy away from and just go back to their old ways. But I couldn't imagine doing that, because, I mean, how can you forget once you've experienced better? Like, how could you go back and, I love a quote by a famous runner in the US. He was a mile runner, Glenn Cunningham, who held the world record. And he once said, back in the 1940s, which was amazing because they were going to amputate his legs as a child. But he said he'd rather be dead than mediocre, and that's how I feel.
Like that. Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to live a mediocre life. If there's opportunity for better, I'm going to seize it with both hands.
I like that. So you said Doug Graham and this Raw Energy. Who wrote Raw Energy?
That was Leslie Kenton.
Leslie Canton. Okay. And were there any other big inspirations for you at that time?
Yeah. the week that I went raw, so after I'd heard Doug's program and went raw, like I decided, like we went away on a family trip, and I it was in a remote area, so whatever food I took, whether it was cooked vegan or raw vegan, that's all I was going to have access to. I wasn't going to be able to get more food for that week, and so I only took raw food with me, and that was great. And I remember reading a book by David Klein, who passed away last year, but he wrote a book called, it was called Alive, Your Natural Diet. It was retitled to something else similar but different a few years ago, but it was called Alive, Your Natural Diet, and you can still find it if you look that up. And it's sort of based on the work by T.C. Fry, some of the work by T.C. Fry, who was Doug Graham's mentor, and who wrote Life Sciences course, which is a very extensive natural hygiene course with more than 1,000 pages back in the, I guess, 1980s. And so David Klein took some of T.C. Fry's work and just added his own words to bits and pieces, and then made it into a book, and it's a really great book. At that time I also read the book that David Wolf and Steve Ireland and the three authors, they stole the works of another author, a guy called Hovhannissian, who wrote a book many years ago called Raw Eating, and it wasn't in English, so they stole it and released it in English with kind of like childish thesaurus replacements of words all the way through, and then the only original thing they added to it was at the end of each chapter they wrote "Cooked food is poison." So it was a really radical thing, radical kind of book, and I just really resonated with it at the time, but I didn't realize it wasn't their work and that they'd stolen it. But it definitely influenced me. It was really cool.
What was that called again?
So yeah, I liked that one. Well, the original is called Raw Eating by Hovhannissian. Yeah, but they called it. What was it called? Oh my goodness. I'll let you know when I think of it. It's something like Your Natural Diet, but it's
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So what was your diet like first starting out raw, and maybe how it's changed now? Like what are you eating?
Right.
Like I know possibly like an 80-10-10 style diet, or what works for you?
Yeah. I've definitely, I mean, I studied with Doug Graham for 8 years, and like I've definitely been down the 80-10-10 track for a long time, and that works best for sure. When I'm really serious about performing in my ultra marathons or in any running of any distance, I definitely do better when I avoid overt fats, for a few days before. Just definitely feels best, and just stick to like sweet and juicy kind of fruits. When I first started out, I didn't understand the importance of greens, like leafy greens, like lettuce and celery and spinach and all those kind of things, cilantro and all those kind of stuff. But yeah, but I only realized the benefit of those things once I was noticing that I was cramping in every single race that I was doing. About 3 hours into a race, my calves would cramp, my calf muscles would cramp, first my left and then my right, maybe 5 minutes later. And it would always be around, like 3 hours into a race, maybe I think it was like 30 kilometers into a race. It was almost like clockwork. It was quite frustrating.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to do about it. And but then I drank celery juice. Actually, it was blended celery, not celery juice. So I kind of chewed my way through some blended celery before the race. Had a huge cup of it, and then I didn't cramp in that race. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something here. And yeah, the sodium, I must have been. There's definitely minerals involved. that were causing the cramping. And so I did that for a few races and didn't cramp in any of them. And every race before that, I'd cramped in every single time. So then I thought, oh, okay, I just need to do that for every race. But then I started eating salads like on a daily basis, which I like to do in the evenings or late afternoon, like whenever my last meal for the day is. And once I started doing that, I realized I didn't need to eat greens during a race or any vegetables during a race, because greens and vegetables are higher in minerals than fruit is. Right. Fruit has a lot of minerals, but you get more minerals per bite with vegetables and with leafy greens. So yeah, I started having salads regularly, and then I realized I did a race where I didn't eat greens at all. Like I didn't eat any celery during the race, because celery is particularly high in sodium.
Right.
So that's a very special kind of food. If you need more sodium, that's a great one to go to. But then I found I didn't cramp even though I didn't have celery in the race, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I stopped having it, and I never cramped again in races ever since.
Interesting.
Just because I have regular salads, and I've had periods where I've even not had salad for several weeks, and I still haven't cramped. So I think I've just got enough minerals in my body just from having regular salads ongoing that it's meeting my needs. So, but if I ever have a cramp, I know what to do. Just eat some more celery.
There you go. That's some good advice. I know a lot of people suffer from cramping, and probably women as well, during that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for cramps. A friend of a friend once wrote a paper on it, and I think he cited 20 different reasons why you can get a cramp.
Wow.
You can do more than the muscle's been trained to do. It can be dehydrated. It can be tears. There can be lots of different reasons, and it can be nutritional from several different perspectives, from sodium perspective, but also from potassium, or there's other minerals involved as well, like manganese and magnesium. And so yeah, there's lots of different ways, lots of different causes for cramping. But minerals is definitely the solution. Any question about minerals, like where to get minerals from, like how to get more iron? The answer is always vegetables.
Great. Yeah.
And if you squeeze citrus on leafy greens, you'll be able to absorb twice as much of the iron as well. As another
because vitamin C,
a long time ago. Yeah, it somehow makes it more bioavailable, I guess is the right word.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, so that's a kind of cool tip, but I never do that unless I want the flavor, like I don't of citrus. So yeah, I guess I'm getting enough iron, so I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. I'm sure you're not deficient in vitamin C, as of
Oh, definitely not in vitamin C, but using vitamin C to get more iron out of leafy greens. Yeah. I don't need to do that. I haven't found the need to do that. So
do you eat do you eat like seaweed for like iodine and stuff?
I don't. It's not on my never ever list. If someone makes me a nori roll, with raw nori sheets, yeah, I'll eat it. But I never buy it. I never make it. I've gone for a year, 2 years, 3 years without eating any. I don't have any problems.
Awesome.
So no, I don't worry about that. So where do I get my iodine? I don't know, but I get it from somewhere.
And what about like B12?
Yeah, B12 is an interesting one. I could talk about that for a long time, but I'll try to keep it short. I've had 2 issues with B12 in this time, and they've both been to do with poisoning myself, not on purpose. One time I I think it was 2012. I had a day where I was flying the next day to Costa Rica, and I was going to be there for 3 months. So I was trying to finish off all these chores around the house, mostly they were all in the garden. I put down a whole bunch of soil, put some sugar cane mulch on it. I put up 2 posts of treated pine to make a pull-up bar. And I laid some pavers, so I was cutting them in half. And yeah, and so I was running out of time, so I was cutting the pavers without a mask, so I was breathing in cement dust.
Oh,
I did all these things that were toxic to myself. I ate some tomato leaves from my garden. I didn't realize they were neurotoxic. I thought, I wonder what they taste like. I just thought they were, harmless, and they didn't taste bad. They didn't taste poisonous or anything, but I found out later they are neurotoxic. I ate some deadly nightshade berries. Don't eat anything with the name deadly in the name, just as a tip. But I had the understanding that if they're purple, that they're ripe. They're just a small berry that just grows.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Like a weed in Australia, and they start out green and they ripen to purple. And animals eat them, like dogs eat them, and but they always eat the purple ones. And I'd read somewhere that if they're purple, that they're ripe and they're not toxic. But it turns out, after I did more research afterwards, that they're actually always neurotoxic. So I had a few of those, and I was handling the mulch in the garden, which has a lot of spray on it because they try to control cane toads in the sugar cane fields in Australia. So, that probably had a lot of toxic stuff, chemicals on it. But whatever happened, at the end of the day, my hand felt really rough. And at first I thought it was just from handling the pavers, the roughness of the handling the stonework. But then I realized it was something different, and it was kind of a deeper feeling. And I mean, a doctor can never give you the exact answer, but my understanding is that some combination of, or one thing, or all of those things depleted my B12 to a point where I was getting symptoms, and I was also getting basically the poisoning caused nerve damage, and I felt like a cord of numbness all the way up beneath the skin, just like a cord like that size, just going, which I guess is maybe where my nerves go, like the pathway in parallel to, there's always like a lymphatic system and the nerves, right, and the bone all kind of running parallel with the same name. The radius and the ulna, they all have like the radial nerve and the rate. So it was just like a cord of numbness through there, and it was spreading. After I got to Costa Rica, it kept spreading up towards the top of my arm, and I was worried about it. And I talked to Doug about it, Doug Graham, because I was at his retreats, and he wasn't, he told me all the symptoms of B12, which I was already familiar with, but he just kind of reaffirmed that I didn't have those symptoms. I just had this one thing, and so it seemed clear that I just had nerve damage, and it just took time to recover from that. But I did have some B12 shots at that time, and I didn't feel any different, and nothing changed. And it just took time. It took like a year before it was back to normal. Yeah. And then last year, I had a sort of similar but different experience in Borneo. I ate some Dubai fruit. Right. That fruit you have to put in warm water.
I love that. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't eat it when it's bad, because I didn't prepare it, and it was a new fruit to me. And some of them tasted a little bit off. I thought they had more of a shelf life. I don't know why, but they actually go bad pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They don't last too many days before they go bad. And most of them were good, but there were just some bad ones mixed in. Every now and then I just get a bad bite. And we're in the forest, like you said, at Lindsay's. We're in the Ulu rainforest. Yeah. And there wasn't other food for me to eat as a raw vegan. Everyone else on the event was eating cooked food. So I didn't really have access to anything else. So I just ate a lot of Dubai. I think I ate 70 pieces, which is a lot. And with the fermenting of a few of them, it turned the whole lot into fermented mess in my stomach, and it expanded. And I woke up at like 3 a.m. and had to throw up, and it was just a mess. And then I felt off all day, and then the second night I threw up again, and I didn't eat all day, and I had diarrhea, and anyway, and when I was throwing up that second night, like my throat was burning so much, and it was swollen, and it was so painful. Like I felt like I was throwing up razor blades. Like it was unbearable to keep being sick. And I thought I was at great risk of choking as well, because my throat was swelling up so much and it was just red raw. But yeah, so I think all that acid just sitting in my stomach for 2 days basically, fermenting. I think it damaged the cells in my stomach that produce the intrinsic factor.
Okay.
It's because when we consume B12, like that's the extrinsic factor, and it has to combine with the intrinsic factor that your stomach produces in order to form the active form of like adenosine cobalamin that our body uses.
Yeah.
So that wasn't happening. So over the following months, I was in Thailand, which was the start of the pandemic. I was there for 6 months, and I just started getting B12 symptoms. So again, this wasn't diagnosed by a doctor or anything, but because a doctor was the last place you wanted to go at that time in the pandemic, even if you could. And so, yeah, I think I just damaged my stomach from that throwing up, because I've never had such strong acid come out of my body before. It was really bad, and I think that just had to heal. And so I ended up taking, like about 7 months later, I got a shot. I just went to a doctor when I got to Austria for the fruit festival there, and I just went to a doctor and said, I'm pretty confident that I'm low in B12. Explained why, and he just said, yeah, that does sound right. And he just gave me a shot. Like, he didn't do any testing. It was really interesting. And that time I felt immediately better. So I was definitely low in B12. Like, I walked out and then I just felt so much more energy. Like I was kind of at a point where I could barely do a push-up. Like that I was that low in energy. So that was, and I had the tingling had numbness in my feet, and it was going up my legs. And it all totally reversed. So yeah, I think if you act upon any B12 symptoms, there's time to act on it. I don't feel like there's a risk of permanent nerve damage that everyone always fears. Everyone makes up their own mind, but that was my experience, and it's all better now, and feel awesome.
Yes, so I'm sure your body is pretty efficient at making its own B12. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I believe so.
You said you don't get any of the symptoms from B12 deficiency.
No, I've never had any other symptoms apart from those 2 experiences. Right. They've been the most plausible explanation. Like, seem like pretty obvious explanations to me when I look at what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you count?
I don't supplement.
Right. Yeah. Do you count calories at all?
I don't count calories at all. I found it useful when I started out. I know how to. I've certainly studied a lot about how many calories are in things, but I find it's just a much nicer experience to just eat. When you count things, it's kind of like if you try to count how many times you breathe per minute, the fact that you're counting it changes your breathing, right? So I feel like by counting calories, you kind of not necessarily eating what you would eat naturally. But when people make significant changes to their diet and lifestyle, like, and they don't have a frame of reference for what is normal, I think counting calories is really important, because otherwise people fall down the trap of either under eating and getting really hungry and then going back to binging on things they don't want to eat. Or they go in the other direction and just worry about food so much that they overeat. Pounding down dates, making smoothies with 20 dates in it, or that kind of thing. And I did that when I started out a bit as well, but it's not good. It's not good for your teeth. It's not. But I think it's really important. You got to learn. We should have learned how to eat from our parents, but unfortunately, we have to learn to eat as adults. So you got to start somewhere, and I think counting calories is a really important place to start, just to get an idea of how many blueberries does it take to make a meal versus how many bananas does it take to make a meal versus how many mangoes versus how many apricots.
Cool.
And eating simply, I do value that. Like, I like eating one food at a time, kind of
mono
thing.
meals.
Yeah, mono meals. But I do make salads, and I do enjoy salads very much. But sometimes I go to make a salad and I just eat the mango, then I eat the tomato, and then then I eat the avocado, and then I just eat, and I'll just chew on the cilantro.
Yep. I do the same.
So, and that's just, it's just fun to do that sometimes, and it's simpler. But I do enjoy making food as well. And I love using dehydrators and stuff, but I haven't used one. I mean, I've been traveling for 16 months, so I haven't been to Australia since I left for Borneo back in February last year.
Oh.
So
cool.
So I've been living out of hotels and
yeah. So how did you get into ultra running? I'm guessing that came after the raw diet, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
I started running a lot more when I went vegan, when I went cooked vegan. And I also started swimming a lot, and I became a volunteer lifeguard in Australia on the beaches and did that for 10 years. But all that extra energy came from going vegan and getting dairy out and all those things that were holding me back and holding my health back. So allergies went away, and asthma and kind of chronic things just like that just went away.
Right.
They didn't all go away as a vegan. My asthma didn't completely go away until I went raw vegan, but it went away largely as a cooked vegan. And I ran ultras basically I started running ultras in 2004, which was, but I started running a lot more when I was, after I went vegan in 1999, I started running 5K once a week, then twice a week, then 3 times a week. And I was like, wow, this feels amazing. But then when I tried to do it 4 times a week, I would start to get sore knees and sore ankles and sore groin and tight glutes, and all these kind of things would happen. So I was like, oh, my body can't handle that. But it was really just because I was still eating cooked food and I couldn't recover, effectively. And there's other factors as well, like definitely the more years that you run for, your body adapts to it, but that wasn't the only factor for sure. So yeah, when I went raw, so I did some ultras. I did ultras from 2004 and that. So for about a year and a half before I went raw, I was doing ultras as a cooked vegan. I remember one time I put all this salt on a trail mix thing of like raisins and dates and stuff, and then I poured salt all over it because that's what everyone told me, you have to eat like lots of salt, because you're going to be sweating so much, and and that was the worst thing because I put too much salt on, and I couldn't even. I mean, a grain is too much for me these days, but I couldn't even eat it. So I had all this food and I couldn't consume it. So I was like, well, that wasn't a very smart idea. But I did ultras, as a few ultras as a cooked vegan, and then the next year I did it as a raw vegan, and I literally just took like hours off my time. I took 2.5 hours off my time in one race, like a 100-kilometer race, the Oxfam Trail Walker in Sydney. And I went from like 20 from anyway, it took hours off my race, and then I did another race where it was like the Great North Walk Hundreds, where I did the first 100 kilometers of that race I did in 22 hours as a cooked vegan, and then I went raw just like pretty much a month after that race happened, and then I had been raw for like most of a year when I did the race again. And I did that in 19 and a half hours. Oh, sorry, from 22 down to 19 and a half hours. And then the following year I did it in like 16 and a half hours.
Wow.
Which was the year that I did a water fast with Doug Graham 6 months earlier. So that I broke 6 months earlier. So, that year I'd been resting more and all that kind of stuff, but it had 6 months to rehabilitate and get back. And I was just like soaring to new heights. I just felt amazing. I was just running so much better, and everything was awesome. Just from resting. So that was pretty cool.
And
I'd also had another year of raw.
I'm sorry, what?
And I'd also had another year of eating raw
Oh, okay.
But yeah, but the water fast was definitely a significant factor that year.
How long was your water fast?
It was 29 days, just water. Yeah, no cheating, just water. It was in Costa Rica,
Yeah.
up in the Talamanca Mountains, and by a beautiful river in a very tranquil place at a retreat with Doug Graham. And there was 14 other people, I think, doing it, and it was great. Just he gave education each day, and it just kind of helped reinforce. Kind of explained what to expect in week 1, what to expect in week 2, and all that kind of thing, and why your body's doing certain things, and how all that kind of stuff. And I just learned so much during that time. It was the first time I'd ever let myself do nothing, actually,
Yeah.
in my life.
It's hard.
Because previously I felt guilty. I felt like I was wasting time. I was, I always felt like I had to be achieving something or doing something. But so through the fast, I realized the importance of doing nothing, because sometimes you just have to just be yourself and not be distracted, and let things come from within. Otherwise, you don't even know yourself.
Very true.
So that was a really awesome experience. Yeah, and definitely got the physical benefits. Like 6 months later, that was obvious. But just but mainly the just getting to know myself through just being, essentially alone. Like I was with other people, but I was essentially like just lying down doing nothing all day. So I was alone with my own thoughts, not distracted, and not eating food. So you've got all this nerve energy from sleeping more, not using nerve energy to digest food, not using nerve energy to work or to exercise, and so all this nerve energy. Your body's just, you're thinking more, your body's healing things, and it's a pretty amazing process. And I just like when we dream, we process things. We don't really understand usually what's happening, but it's kind of like that, but in a more active kind of way. I would wake up in the middle of the night with lists of things in my head, like how to change my career, it's like strategies for like, and lists of like things that I really value in life, like truly value, not just things that I want to do as my agenda, but actually things that I like really get value out of in life.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of write those lists down before I could go back to sleep. It was really interesting. And there was no conscious effort to come up with those lists other than I was just resting, and stuff got processed. And then there was just, these lists were the output.
It's so amazing what our mind can do when we stop distracting it.
Yeah. And I wrote down those lists, right, as I said, and I didn't look at them for 2 years. And when I did, 2 years later, I like came across the notes, and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. I'll see what I was thinking during my fast. And I read through the lists, and I was like, I've done all of those things now.
Nice.
It's like, because I processed them internally, they just became the way I live. So they all became just normal, natural things for me to do in my life. So that was pretty profound.
Cool. Wow. Amazing. I got a few quick questions here. Favorite fruit?
I mean, durian's definitely among them, but it's a long list of fruits. My favorite fruit.
I understand. Favorite smell?
Oh my goodness, favorite smell. That would be durian too. Just like a fresh, like a fresh Pungmani durian from Thailand,
Yeah.
or a Kunpo Angbak durian from Penang, Malaysia.
Okay. Favorite vegetable?
Favorite vegetable. I do love zucchini.
Well, technically a fruit.
I've had. Okay, you're going with the botanical definition, because technically I can use a different definition. I could use a culinary definition of fruit.
That's fair. So, okay, zucchini.
Yeah, but cilantro. I've had a definite love for cilantro this year, and actually, it's been the predominant green that I've eaten this year. All of my salads almost solely have been cilantro based.
I love cilantro.
I've had some lettuce here and there, but it's just because in Mexico it's so available, it's so abundant, and it tastes so good.
Fork or spoon?
Hands.
I like that answer. Sour or spicy?
Oh, preferably neither. But I would probably go with mildly spicy
Okay.
over sour.
And river or ocean?
Ocean. But I do love rivers.
Okay. And do you mind if I ask how old you are?
48.
48. Okay. And what advice would you give to someone like starting out on a raw food diet?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are important, and you can't do it all at once. But definitely, there's no substitute for education. Like, so just keep learning, and just know that if you don't have the answers now, don't get frustrated. Look it up, or write down things you don't have time to look up and look them up later. Because when you don't have the answers, if someone says, "Where do you get your protein?" and you don't know, you put yourself in a difficult space, right? But if you have education, you have confidence to respond to things, and if you can respond confidently to people, then their concerns and worries are deflated, and then they stop asking questions, because they're not really asking, "Where do you get your protein?" They're really saying, "I'm worried about you. Are you going to be okay? Can you give me some sort of confidence that you're okay?" Yeah, and so seeking support, like accepting help from others. Don't try to do everything yourself. So if you're having problems, let people know. Don't think of having needs as a problem or a weakness, but see needs as a gift. Because if I have a need and I express it to you and you're able to help me, you feel good about that.
Exactly.
So I like that perspective of seeing needs as a gift. Yeah, and I think it's really important to be completely open, honest, authentic, and don't have secrets, and don't hide things, because they just eat holes away at you. I don't know. It just freed up when I stopped being self-conscious about things, just silly things, self-image or whatever. Life just got so much easier when I just literally, I was like, there was a day where I just went, I have no more secrets. Ask me anything, anytime, I'll give you the answer. Obviously there's situations, someone's holding a gun to my head and whatever, like I might lie to them to get out of a situation. But if someone's genuinely asking a question, I'll tell them the answer. And it's really just beautiful to not have secrets.
Yeah.
To not feel a need to have secrets. Yeah, eating enough food.
Right.
Getting advice from people that have results. Don't go to the overweight nutritionist to get, or the overweight doctor that's going to have heart disease to get advice.
Yeah.
Go to somebody that's getting the results that you seek, long-term results.
I think that's huge. Yeah, like people go into this and it's like, it can be lonely, and having someone there that can keep you accountable, that knows what you're going through. And because people think they'll get detox symptoms or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, I'm doing it wrong, I got to go back to cook food, like this isn't healthy." But having someone that's been there, done that, really important.
For sure. Yeah, definitely sharing what you're doing with people who you care about, is important. Like if I was the president of the United States and I publicly announced that I'm going raw vegan, I'd be pretty motivated to stay raw vegan, right? Otherwise, they're going to say, "Oh, you lied to us."
Yeah.
So, and telling family, like, "Hey, I want to do this. I'm really. It sounds like a really good thing. I think it's going to help me, to be a better person. I'm going to be healthier and whatever. Can you support me?"
Like speak it into existence, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's another tip too, is sometimes you might not believe something about yourself, but if you essentially lie to yourself, like say you think you're ugly, and then you look into the mirror and say, "I am so beautiful," and just say it over and over. At some point you start to realize there's truth to it, and then you realize that it is true and it's always been true. And the negative kind of, the ego kind of that was keeping the negative stories alive, you realize that was just your mind, and it's a false belief, and you can let it go. So
it's just like that thing, if you're depressed, you just force yourself to smile, and then like after 2 minutes it tricks your brain, and then you're happy again, right?
I don't think it even takes 2 minutes. I think it happens straight away. Like sometimes I use that in ultramarathon. Sometimes if I'm feeling really just heavy legs and I'm really struggling to just keep going, I just force myself to smile, and it just picks me up.
Wow.
It's kind of like when I do track ultras. If I run around an athletics field for 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah, like
you
100 miles.
You just say it like it's just another day, you know.
Yeah, but every time you go past the finish line, like every time you do another lap, there's people there that are clapping or saying something to you, and it's so uplifting. It just really could pull you out of a hole. Or if I'm running for hours through forest or jungle, and then suddenly I come to an aid station, a checkpoint, and there's all people there, and they all clap you in, and I mean, it's hard to feel down when you've got such support. So
absolutely,
that's where I just think surround yourself with things you love and people you love, and running towards things you love is much easier than running away from things you love. So focus on where you're going rather than where you're coming from.
Oh, I like that.
Don't focus on what you're leaving behind.
Yeah,
that helps a lot too.
We were talking before about how you ran 35 hours. You ran across England. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I did that. I started on the west coast at Whitehaven on Irish Sea, and ran for 35 hours, just under 35 hours to the North Sea on the east coast. I started with brand new pair of 5-finger, minimalist footwear, and at the end of the race, because it was all road and concrete, at the end I had holes in both heels. Just started to form, like actually went all the way through. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. I didn't stop. I didn't sleep the whole time. I didn't fall asleep at all. I did hallucinate briefly in the second morning, in the next morning, around 24 hours into the race, because it started at like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. the first day. So when the sun was kind of coming up early the next morning, I was certain there was a mother helping her like 2-year-old son to just pee in the bushes off the trail, off the side of the trail, but there was nobody there. I was in the middle of nowhere, but somehow my brain started adding extra things into the real space that I was in.
Yeah,
but it was kind of putting false things into it. That was quite interesting.
And what was your fuel for this this ultra run?
My fuel was bananas, mangoes, dates. I preferred the juicy fruit, so like I would meet my support crew. My friend Olmo. Every runner in this race had to have a support vehicle just to keep you safe running across the country. And I would see him about every 10 miles, about every 16 kilometers, every few hours. And and as I would approach him, I'd give him like an empty bag, and he'd give me a new bag that had some mango cheeks ready to just like turn inside out and to bite into. And he'd give me a new bag of dates, and if I'd eaten the other ones, and he'd give me some new water bottles, just one or two kind of small water bottles, and maybe a banana or two, maybe 2 bananas.
Okay.
And yeah, and then I'd start running again. Or actually, I'd walk for a little while usually, and I'd eat the mangoes straight away. So I'd arrive to the aid station to like the meeting point, having not eaten for a little while, so I was kind of ready to eat. And then so I didn't have to carry those mangoes for long, so I'd eat them straight away.
Yeah.
Throw the skins in nature, and then put the empty plastic bag in my pouch. And then I always had my dates for emergency calories. So if I ever was feeling low in calories and didn't have anything else to eat, I'd dip into the dates. But most of the time I didn't eat the dates, and I certainly prefer not to eat them because it's kind of dry.
Right.
They would, a bit drier. They're not like super fresh dates, so they're just medjool dates. if you eat stuff like that while you're racing, you have to drink more water, and it's not the same as getting the water in your food.
Yeah.
Eating drier food and then drinking, it's much harder to digest. It's much more challenging for digestion. And in a long race like that, we have to eat more food than normal, and you're putting your body through a fair amount of stress and sleep deprivation, which doesn't help digestion as well.
Yeah.
You want to stack all your as much as you can in favor of keeping your digestion as easy as possible.
Right.
So yeah, definitely mangoes was a great option. Bananas is a good option.
And what was your recovery like? Because I know you talked a little before about how your recovery is like so amazing on this diet, and how long did it take you to get back to normal after that?
Yeah. What I do after a race, that was 250 kilometers, which is, I think that's around 140 miles. After a race like that, where I've missed a whole night of sleep, I usually sleep for somewhere like 13 to 15 hours.
Sure.
And I'm not necessarily asleep the whole time, but I just commit that time to lying on my back in bed or on my side or whatever, but like lying in bed for that time. And I can feel my legs, mending or whatever's happening. So I commit to that rest time, and then I'll do that for like 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then I'm pretty good. Like, I did a 24-hour race in Thailand one time, and that was the first time I ran more than 100 miles in 24 hours. So it was like, I ran 163 kilometers, I think, in 24 hours. Yeah. It wasn't flat, it was on an undulating kind of course around a lake. And it was super hot, crazy heat of northern Thailand up in Chiang Mai. Yeah, and the next day, so after one night's sleep, my friends were at the track, the athletics track, and this guy that I'd recently made friends with he trained with Shaolin monks for like some number of years, like at least 3 years. I think it was a little bit longer. And he was going to show us their methods of training. And I was like, I don't want to miss that. So I went to the track, and it involved squatting, deep squats all the way down to your ankles, like your butt to your ankles.
Right.
Fast, like down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, like fast squat, and repeats of that. And we'd do those, and then we would sprint. And I was sprinting at like what I would approximate was like about 90 to 95% of my normal, like fresh, and I'd run 24 hours like the day before.
That's crazy.
Just had one night of sleep. I think I got like 12 hours of sleep or something like that. And just, it just blew my mind. That was the first time I'd ever really experienced like the level of how fast recovery is. Because when I used to run 100 kilometers as a cooked vegan, I would walk around like an old man with a cane, like for a week. Yeah. It would be a week before I could even think about jogging. All I could do would be like swimming, because it's not load bearing, or I could cycle, just turning the legs around because you're sitting on the seat and it's taking a load off your legs. I could do those things as an active recovery, as a type of active recovery. But but since going raw, like I can run the next day. I'm not going to be 100%, but I'm going to be at least 80%.
Wow. Okay. I think that's pretty much all the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
What else to talk about? I don't know. It's a beautiful life.
Yeah.
My life has been greatly enriched. I definitely benefited from practicing having courage to face things that are challenging.
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of being afraid to talk to somebody about something. Now it's so normalized for me. Like it's like I can't not talk to somebody if something's important. Like I just know I can feel that it's the right thing, and I need to talk to them about it. And so it's really easy to do now. And so I don't let things kind of become a problem or be unspoken like I used to. So it's a much more beautiful life. And I think when you have friendships or relationships with people where you're not open and like complete, like an open book,
Right.
um, where you share with initiative things that are important between the two of you, whatever that might be, depending on maybe a work colleague or whatever. Like there's certain different things you would share with different people. But I find like since going raw and kind of growing so much in so many ways, that all of the new friendships and relationships that I form, they're all so much richer because there's never that disconnect of not sharing or of holding back or of leaving something ambiguous, or if there's ever anything in question, I just say, if someone says something to me that feels hurtful, I don't assume that they're trying to hurt me. I assume that I misunderstood what they said. So I'll say, oh, what I heard was this. Is that what you meant? Because I feel like I must have misheard you, because or something like that, because that doesn't seem like like something you would say, or just whatever it is. Like I talk about things and they can see that I'm not being aggressive or threatening, or
just an authentic person.
Just an authentic person having an authentic conversation, and that just makes life so much simpler. Like there's no, like, all the drama just goes away.
Yeah. If you lie about something, you got to think all the time. It's like, oh wait, I lied about that. What was that? What was that?
What's the story that I have to tell?
What is my story? Yeah.
Hang on, is this the person that I told that story or the other story? Oh no.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to just tell just to be authentic and just be you. It doesn't need to be any more complicated, and it's just an enriching way to live.
I love that.
I think diet is just one. Like once you've got your diet under control and it's nurturing and nourishing you, then it just opens up the world to grow in so many other ways.
Right.
I feel like it's kind of unlimited. The more you grow, the more you can grow. The more you learn, the more you can learn. The more you love, the more you can love.
Yeah.
But by the same token, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And the more you love, the more you realize you can love more. Like there's always, so there's like, it's a really beautiful setup. I love the seasonal nature of fruits and vegetables. I just love that we eat something until we're sick of it, and then it goes out of season, and then it comes back again the next year, and you love it again. It's just such a beautiful design.
You're telling me that we shouldn't eat durian every day, 365 days a year?
Well, if you follow the season, that's okay, right?
Right.
But actually, no, I don't feel good when I do that.
No, definitely.
I don't know how Lindsay does it. I don't know how Lindsay. I mean, she does. She goes through periods where she doesn't eat so much.
Yeah.
But she still comes back pretty strong. Like
I just did like a week, like a couple of weeks ago. I did like a whole week eating like 6-7 kilos of durian every day, and now I'm just like, I just want like watermelon and mangoes, because like when you're in like a hot climate, especially, durian like it's not hydrating. It's not like,
No,
anyways.
It doesn't make your urine clear, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's good for your kidneys, actually. Kind of looks like a kidney.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a detrimental. Yeah, it's not a food detrimental to your health, but it definitely makes you feel warmer.
Yeah.
Whether or not your temperature actually does increase or not doesn't matter. You feel warmer, which makes it harder to run. It is more difficult to digest than other fruits. It does take longer. Does take more digestive power to kind of burn through it. It's not just because of the fat. Something about it. I don't know if it's sulfur or whatever it is.
And like people say it's very high in fat, but it's only like 18% supposedly.
Yeah, it's like, depending on the variety, it's like 15 to 30%.
Yeah.
Across all the varieties, I think. So that's not much, like compared to nuts and seeds that are like, up in that.
And avocado,
like 80 to 90%.
Avocado is
like 80, what is something? Yeah. Exactly. So it's not much really. Like bananas have what, like 5% fat or something like that. I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
So, you know, and durian's like from 15 to 30. It's not crazy levels of fat, but it does take more digestive energy. You can feel when you've had too much durian.
Definitely.
Like anything, you lose interest. It just doesn't, it's not as like when you first have it and you haven't had it for a long time, it's just like, wow. It blows, you know, just dopamine kind of off the charts.
Right.
But if you have it every day for several weeks, you know, and you're having like meals of it, like, and if you're having like maybe having it more than once a day for a sustained period of time, you just lose interest. Yeah, I mean, it still tastes good, but it's not the same, you know, it's not the same love affair. Like it's
yeah.
So yeah, and so I like to kind of, I love seasons. I love seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all, Grant. Where can people reach you if they want to check out your stuff?
Yeah, my website is rawausieathlete.com.
Okay.
That's Aussie is AUSSIE. My Instagram is at rawausieathlete. If you go to my website, rawausieathlete.com, up the top of the page, there's all my links to my main kind of platforms, social media. Even my email address is there, grant@rawausieathlete.com.
And I'll put those in the YouTube description as well, so people can find you.
Cool. Yeah, I actually created an ebook while in Mexico earlier this year called Satisfying Hotel Salads.
Okay.
And it's just basically, you know, you don't need any tools. There's no electrical tools required, just basic like a knife, a cutting board, and bowl and a spoon kind of thing. And
I have a lot of I have a lot of experience with hotel salads for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun idea. So I created that book. So
cool.
I don't know if anyone wants to. It's not currently available. I haven't put it up anywhere. It was available in that Ultimate Raw Vegan bundle that was sold recently.
Yeah.
But if anyone wants a copy of that, just email me and I'll send it to you.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Grant. It was it's a really good chat, and nice meeting you as well.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, Austin.
Hope you have a great.
Glad you got in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we could do it again.
For sure. Yeah, I'd be up for that.
Right on. And have a good night in Costa Rica.
Yeah, definitely. Fly back to Mexico tomorrow, so I'm excited to get back there.
Right on. Safe travels. Yeah. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll see you again.
All right. Keep it fruity.
Keep it fruity. All right. Peace out, Grant.
Bye.